Good afternoon to everyone joining us from across the world. Welcome to East Lansing, Michigan, and EXPLOR Ed, hosted by me, Jerlando Jackson, Dean of the College of Education at Michigan State University. This is the second episode of our showcase series from the MSU College of Education. EXPLOR Ed brings thought leaders to campus in conversation regarding the future of education, kinesiology, leadership, equity, and more. Today, we are honored to have and welcome back Dr. Okhee Lee. Back to Michigan State University, that is. Dr. Lee received her doctorate in education from MSU and has been selected as a 2022 commencement keynote speaker, where she will be also awarded with an honorary Doctor of Humanities. Dr. Lee is an internationally recognized expert in STEM education with diverse K-12 student groups with a particular focus on ending disparities in STEM subjects for students who are learning English as an additional language in public schools. Dr. Lee's research on integrating science and language, development of curriculums, and production of teacher resources reflects a deep commitment to providing quality, equitable education to all learners. Dr. Lee is currently a professor in the Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Human Development at New York University and principal investigator of the Science and Integrated Language Research Lab, also known as SAIL. Dr. Lee is a great example of the impact that Spartans can have in transforming and improving education, specifically through the lens of educational equity. Please join me in giving Dr. Okhee Lee a warm welcome back to East Lansing. Welcome, Dr. Okhee Lee. We are happy to have you back on the MSU campus. For those who do not know your background, you grew up in South Korea and decided to move to the United States to study education in a PhD program here. Can you tell us a little more about what motivated that decision?
When the airplane landed on the Lansing airport today, I was in tears as I look back on when I first arrived on the MSU campus on August the 2nd, 1984. So that was when I was turning 25. But MSU is a home in my adult life, so I'm coming home, and it meant a great deal. I came here to get my first doctoral degree that I studied in 1984, and I'm getting a second degree in 2022, so I must have done something right. So how it happened, where it started, so I was born in South Korea after 5 years after the Korean War, and I grew up in a very remote village, and I got my master's degree, and then I was told that jobs would go to men, not women. And I couldn't think of any other option of either become the wife, mother, and grandmother, or someone who is working and then become a spinster. And I thought neither was unbearable to me. So I decided to come to the US. And here comes the story of, so it wasn't like the grandiose vision of what I wanted to do in my life. What I learned from that experience is that it is your determination, but also it's your serendipity of how you make the best of it. So the determination is I have to get the scholarship to study because my parents were poor. And then the serendipity was that here is what I would like to say about the legend of the College of Education at Michigan State. That in the early 1980s, looking back on 4 decades ago, research on teaching was not a research agenda because the people thought of research on teaching as a service. It's the trade that you do. It was not research on teaching as a research agenda. So the College of Education faculty members, the really prominent faculty members, got the Institute for Research on Teaching from, at that time, National NIE, Institute of Education, for 5 years. That was a breakthrough for the field of research on teaching. It created, and you can see my goosebumps, and I heard about it even in South Korea. So when I applied for 5 doctoral programs, all in Midwest, Michigan State was one of them, along with several other strong competitors. So all right, I will have to say it, and you can cut it and all that, but I will say it. This is why it's so important that in February of 1984, I got a call from then Dr. Andy Porter. He was the co-director of the Institute for Research on Teaching. And the other co-director was the late Jerry Brophy. So you had 2 legends, one in measurement and one in motivation, the learning. And Andy Porter called me and he said, hello, this is Andy Porter. And I said, Dr. Porter, the co-director. And so he said, I'm very delighted that we would like to recruit you as one of the 5 research interns that you applied for. And I was thinking, me, an international student, as one of the 5 doctoral research interns recruited? And you can see but then I said, thank you so much, Dr. Porter. I will think about the offer and I will call you back in a couple of days. And I did. So even then, the Michigan State College of Education was known internationally with a groundbreaking work of the Institute for Research on Teaching. And I was the second cohort because the Institute lasted for 10 years. So I'm really a proud alum of Michigan State, College of Education, but particularly Institute for Research on Teaching that gave me the scholarship. And that's how it started. And then the Institute for Research on Teaching for 10 years led to research on teacher education. So when I think about the field, research on teaching and research on teacher education were all born at MSU and the College of Education. And it was just legendary.
Your story is inspiring on how you were motivated to get here and you got here. And can you share, you accomplished a great deal after arriving here during your time. In what ways would you say the learning environment and culture here at MSU and the College of Education helped you to develop as a scholar and inform the work that you do?
So as a scholar, when I first arrived, I came to Dr. Porter's office on the 2nd floor as a co-director of the Institute for Research on Teaching. Everybody knew IRT in the field because it was such a legendary, groundbreaking. I said, I'm your responsibility, Dr. Porter, because you recruited me. So I was humbled that I was I thought I was one of the 5 research interns for that cohort. Then later I learned that, I was the only international research intern recruited by the Institute for Research on Teaching. So apparently I was a sensation. So I will say something about both professionally and personally. Professionally, the main thrust of the research on teaching, the Institute for Research on Teaching, was interdisciplinary. We had a legendary scholar like Jerry Brophy in learning and motivation. We had Fred Erickson, who was in the ethnography education. And then there was a discussion of a Vygotsky from the beginning of it. So around all the disciplines that there were, the main motivation for the research on Institute for Research on Teaching was not only disciplinary knowledge, but also it's an interdisciplinary knowledge. And the person who created the research, the Institute for Research on Teaching, was Lee Schulman. And the teaching as a clinical profession, teaching grounded after the medical profession of a clinical, it all started from the Institute for Research on Teaching. So you could see that on the one hand, Fred Erickson taking ethnology class, and then taking Steve Rodenbush taking the statistics class, and then there was Jerry Brophy taking the motivation class, and there was Andy Anderson, my dissertation director, doing a science education with conceptual change. And then there was arts, and there is a social studies, and just a burgeoning field of research on teaching, not as a discipline alone, but interdisciplinary. So there was, every 2 weeks, there was just visitors who wanted to come. So I remember Lauren Reznick. I remember Jean Glass. I remember I cannot even name all those people. And I was always pinching my head. Am I here or what? Is it real? Is it real? And I was surrounded by. And the real motivation for me at the Institute for Research on Teaching was that just being surrounded by these really good people, I may become close to them in my lifetime. And so it became quite real, just knowing these people. So that's professionally of the Institute. And then it also is all about the College of Education and the program so that they work together. Just the prestige of the Institute for Research on Teaching that got carried into Judy Lanier on Institute for Research on Teacher Education, and all the prominent people like Deborah Ball. And that's the time that David Cohen and Maggie Limpert and Anne-Marie Palinsar, you can see Bob Floden, the fund memories, all those legendary people all working together at the time. So that's a professional. Personally, the Institute for Research on Teaching was housed on the second floor. So I would come to the second floor. And it had a large number of staff members as well as faculty members and doctoral students and many people. And the staff members would always tease me. They just tease me. And I said, stop teasing me. And they would say, Okhee, we love you. And we just tease you because we love you. And I said, stop loving me and stop teasing me. And they teased me even more. And I think that they loved me even more. So the personal is the warmth of the MSU community, especially College of Education community and the Institute for Research on Teaching community, looking after one another. And we love you, and that's why we tease you, and we tease you even more when you say don't love me. And then all the potlucks and all the receptions and all of that. So the caring of the people who made it possible, along with the professionally all the collegial work of the Institute for Research on Teaching and then the Center for Teacher Education.
Well, you were a sensation then, and you still are now. So you are an internationally recognized expert on disparities in STEM subjects for K-12 students who are learning English as an additional language. What motivated you to select that topic for your research?
Now here comes the opportunity and serendipity coming together. Now we have a sort of like a saying that wait for the opportunity. No, wait for the opportunity, but also create the opportunity and then make the opportunity and run with it, right? So how it happened. The reason why Michigan State is so dear to me is because I met a doctoral student in the School of Communication Arts and Sciences. So he was a good friend of mine. And then he got his doctorate degree, and he left to the University of Miami. And when I completed my doctorate degree, yes, I married him before at the MSU Museum in front of the dinosaur. I thought that who else could be a better witness than a prehistoric dinosaur who could. It's partly because we didn't have the money, so we had to use a facility that didn't cost anything and just keep the budget under a few $100s. Okay. So here comes the serendipity. Because he moved to the University of Miami, then I moved to the University of Miami. And when I landed the Miami airport, the PA announcement came. Welcome to Miami. And then welcome to Miami in Spanish. And then welcome to Miami in Haitian Creole. And I said, okay, I'm a new land. I'm not in Lansing anymore. 3 official languages of Miami. So when people ask me, how did you choose the topic? It wasn't really I chose the topic, but I landed in a topic because where I was living. So if you're living in Miami, you cannot think of anything but language and culture. And luckily, and fortunately, really, I was really blessed that even though I did not speak Spanish or Haitian Creole, I am still a non-native speaker. I'm learning English. So I understand and I have the empathy of. So here comes a very interesting. So that's one side of language and culture in Miami. That's the blessing, the opportunity. And then I had the opportunity and blessing of working with at the time James Gallagher and Andy Anderson and Glenn Berkheimer. These are established science educators in the College of Education. So I had the training in research in science education, and I went down and I said, well, I'm surrounded by different languages and cultures, and science is my research training, and I need to combine them. And I said, language and culture in science education. We're talking about the 1992. And people would say, language and culture in science education, it doesn't make any sense because gravity is a gravity is a gravity. What do language and culture have anything to do with learning science? So that was in 1992. And we got research funding, small funding, $50,000 from the National Science Foundation. And this is why I'm so appreciative of NSF. And then from there is language and culture in science education. And that was the beginning of it 3 decades ago. So what is really interesting is that when I share with a new generation of scholars, and I say 3 decades ago, the notion of a language and culture in science education was it's like a Tina Turner version of what love got to do with it. It's like, huh? Oh, I have never thought of it like that. And so it's in that sense, it's the beginning of it. And what humbles me is in 2 ways. One is that the role of a language and culture, which paved the way for the issues of diversity and equity and justice in science and STEM education, started only 3 decades ago. Before then, it was not even like, oh, what are you talking about? It doesn't. So things can happen really within a just a faster moving process of that happening. And the second side of that, what I'm so grateful is that I just got in that situation. Instead of saying, I don't know, I cannot do, I said, here is an opportunity that people have not done. I just am surrounded by these opportunities, and this is my charge, my mission, and my opportunity. And so in that sense, I made some contribution to language and culture in science education and STEM education. So that's how the serendipity happens and how you take the best of it.
What have you found to be the biggest barriers facing students in STEM who are learning English as a second language?
All right. So I was thinking that I am learning English as a second language. And lately, I'm learning a new language called the asset-based approach. If you say that Okhee does not speak English, it's already a deficit. But if you say that Okhee is learning English, but she speaks Korean, she knows the Chinese, and she knows the German, I have multiple languages. So what I have been thinking more and more pedagogically, but also conceptually, is that once you say, here is a norm, and if you don't meet the norm, then you are limited and you're deficit. But if you say that there are multiple norms, and you bring the assets to one of the norms or many of the norms, then you are part of the community. So I have been trying to think differently about, it's not the norm of having or not having English. It's that I'm learning English and I'm adding, but I am also speaking multiple languages. So I'm redefining the notion of a norm. And we need to think of what people bring as assets rather than what people do not have for not meeting the norm. Mm. So here is something that I would say about the Miami episode. So instead of saying that I don't speak, I don't know the language and culture, here is an opportunity for me to shine because it's an opportunity. So we need to think of not as a challenge, but as an opportunity, not as not meeting the norm, but here is bringing different assets to just what we typically think of one norm.
Thanks for sharing. You've developed several resources to assist educators and better support these students that you've just described. What are some of the most impactful ways that we as educators can support them?
Okay. So one thing that as a scholar that I have been wanting to do, and I actually attended a conference, the notion that I never thought about the importance of that we need a critical mass, that it has to be, especially for minoritized groups, small-scale research like ethnography is very informative, but to make it happen, it has to be scale. So I just the notion of a system and scale really hit me hard. So I have been trying really hard to think of asset base is one, but also research informing policy, policy guiding practice, and then practice informing research, and then research, policy, and practice in consensus, speaking the same language, doing it. So one way that I thought about, especially with the new science standards, again, College of Education plays a key role, like the CREATE, Joe Krychek, and prominent science educators who I absolutely admire. When I think about it. So here are the new science standards when I was a part of. What would be the way to support all students, particularly with a focus on multilingual learners, curriculum, to make it available, to become system, to make it policy. So I'm a strong advocate of, and the reason is policy. The reason is that, we have been thinking about the system, historical system, systemic racism, historical racism system, and the notion that the system can enable individuals to do the right thing, or the system hinders individuals to do the right thing. And as leaders and advocates, that we have to be very bold to change the system, to make it easier for the individuals to carry out what they think is important.
Thank you. So you have an intriguing research project where you've developed a 5th grade science curriculum that makes use of actual trash. Can you tell us more about the garbage unit?
So I talk a lot of trash. And I say that it's not the smelly garbage. It's a beautiful smell of a garbage because we make it that way, right? So I mentioned the CREATE, the new science standards, and my colleagues, Joe, and many others here in the College of Education. The new standard is very much in thinking of assets that children bring. It's not that scientists and science educators will say that you little people who do not know science and you better listen to me because I'm telling you and you have to read and write and learn from the knowledge that is given. The new science standards are, no, you have the agency. You are the scientist, and you are the engineer, and you are explaining, and you are designing solutions. It's students having the agency. So phenomenon really matters. If the phenomenon for the whole unit is boring, a teacher will be bored to death. Now, if a teacher is bored to death, students will be even more bored to death, right? So phenomenon has to be really engaging. And we had a hard time of doing physical science of chemical reactions and conservation of weight and properties in terms of particles. And these are really tough topics. And I was eating banana, and someone said, oh, banana, rotting, brown. And another cow said, oh yeah, that's a chemical change. There is going to be smell, and you'll decompose. Banana. And then orange, and then garbage. So the whole unit for 8 weeks is organized around what happens to my garbage from the school cafeteria. So students are sorting, they are analyzing. Students say here's open system and closed system of a banana and oranges, and then plastic and aluminum in the same. And then over time, orange slices disappear, banana slices disappear, but plastic stays and aluminum stays. And there is a stinking smell, beautiful smell of a garbage. What is that smell? New substance, chemical reactions. Banana has disappeared. But then in the closed system, the weight stays the same, even though I don't see it anymore. That's a magic. So students are actually explaining the garbage as if I'm trying to figure out smell. I don't see the banana anymore. Then it comes where the garbage go in a landfill. Where is a landfill located? You get the idea? Disparity. Now there is a plastic that does not decompose, it does not vanish. What happens? Plastic stays forever, and it's polluting the environment, and it's polluting the ocean. And the plastic pollution is killing animals in the ocean. So students have become socially aware and conscious of. So that's the famous garbage unit.
So oftentimes it can be difficult for researchers to make their findings interesting and relevant for those who most need it. The garbage unit is a perfect example of how to make research relatable. What advice do you have for educators or scholars who want to make their research accessible and relatable?
So I just mentioned the multiple languages, the multiple ways of knowing, multiple cultures, multiple ways. So I don't consider that there is only one way of doing anything. There are multiple ways. And I admire people who do theoretical research. But if you care about the making your research available, it's an issue of so what? And I think that my sense of doing more, making a difference, has become more as I become a senior, meaning older, that I don't have many years, and I wanted to change the system by making improvements. So the garbage is based on the work with the teachers and students and the excitement of all. Cool, we have heaps of garbage in the center of the classroom. What are we doing with it? So the excitement and excitement, once you see the excitement, then that excitement goes long and far because of the power. And so the garbage unit is developed in collaboration with the teachers and students with the funding from the National Science Foundation, because I was a member of the writing team of the New Science Standards along with Joe. But I also was the leader of New Science Standards for Equity and Diversity. So I took the responsibility on my shoulders to make the New Science Standards accessible and relevant and available to all students, including multilingual learners. So I took it up as my challenge. It's my job, and who else can do better? Okay, we're doing it, and we can focus on. And once we did that, so I think of research, not only doing the conceptual work, but making research really prominent. Because if I don't write about, or if my team does not write about research, then nobody knows about it, and then the funding and all the good work gets washed. This is why I think of a scholarship as really important to make it visible, to be prominent, so that people think about, oh, there is a research program that's doing that. And once you do it, then my honor, the next is that New York State Education Department said, we heard about the garbage unit and your curriculum. We would like to make your curriculum and the especially garbage unit as a state resources. So we have about set of 8 webinars and briefs that are posted on the New York State Education Department website, which goes along with the state standards. Then we go into National Science Teaching Association to make it available to the 40,000 members of the science educators in the nation. So it goes just bigger and better. And now we are doing research using the garbage unit, other curriculum in New York City Public Schools that has over 1 million students. And when you hit New York City, you hit the whole nation. So,
yet another reason why you are a sensation.
It's my passion, and it's my expertise, and it's my charge to make it known.
Yes. What is a piece of advice you have for students, either undergraduate or graduate, who are not sure if they want to pursue research or the academy full time after graduation?
So it's about research and academy. Research and academy is also, again, one of the multiple pathways of a career and choices that people make. And I would like to start by saying that graduates, follow your heart, follow your mission, follow what you desires to do, and then let it take the path in any way that you make a difference. And I say, make a difference, leave a legacy. Now, if you're thinking of a research and academy, it may be a little bit of an acquired taste, like different ethnic food, because we don't do research and academy like every day. Teaching, everybody knows. Service, everybody knows. But research and academy, I have never been there, especially for those who have and haven't. The more I talk to people, I have colleagues who would say, my father, who is the dean of, and I say, I grew up after Korean War. How would I know, right? So my advice to the graduates about the research and academy in particular is that if you're interested in ideas, I wonder, what if, and all that. And if you pursue that possibility, my first advice would be, give it a try. It's like chocolate. If you haven't tasted chocolate, you would not know. So give it a try, and you may like it. The same thing with the vegetables. I grew up with the vegetables and fruits in the countryside of South Korea because those are the only things that I knew growing up. So I learned to really appreciate the smell of cucumber, smell of corn. Actually, I grew up and I love it. Now, if I were told to eat broccoli, you remember one of the presidents? Mm-hmm. My mom told me to eat broccoli, so put sugar or chocolate around the broccoli no, if you learn to enjoy something through, then you really enjoy it. So my advice is that give it a try, because you never know. And if you like it, you really may really like it. So in my life right now, being Okhee with my late husband, being a widow, people will say, why do you work all the time, sacrificing? And I say, I don't sacrifice. Work is me. That's what I would love to do. If I have choice between traveling and being glued to the computer, I would rather be being glued to the computer and travel all over the world with my ideas, because my ideas will take me. So just because people do something may not be the best way to do, give it a try. And then you make your own personal choices, do what you love to do, And I say, no, I love my computer more than traveling. I like traveling with ideas more than traveling with it physically. And it's my choice.
You have been an amazing guest, and this has been an amazing show. Dr. Lee, thank you for your work, for being a tremendous ambassador and supporter of Michigan State, and for joining us today, here today.
And I would like to say it's not just the Michigan State, but it's the College of Education, the legendary work that the College of Education has done ever since I have known from Korea, when I learned about that there is something called the Institute for Research on Teaching, and I wanted to get one of the 5 research internship positions so that I could be one of them. And it's the College of Education, and I consider Michigan State the College of Education, the prominence of the College of Education. So
We agree.
thank you.
We're in by saying, go green.
Go green.